you do decide, that what if strategy should probably be there, because you want to always offer or be able to show that you have thought about all potential factors that might affect what happens with your business, good or bad. Next. So when you're developing the plan, and I've run into this a few times with some business owners that I've worked with, is if your business is new, so I'm going to sort of flip-flop this a little bit. If your business is new, you don't have any sales. You don't have clients yet. So how am I supposed to make a decision about, I don't know what I need to put into a financial plan for business? We're going to start with your startup costs and your expenses, because some of those costs are hard costs. If you have a brick and mortar, or if you have a website, those are costs that are going to come in consistently. So you want to make sure that you would clearly explain what that is. You also want to include the cost of goods sold and your sales forecast based on, again, realistic factors. And then make a determination if you want to do this from 3 to 5 years. Next. At the end of the day, Sun Tzu said it best, which is strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory, and tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. Next. Thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, we can go ahead and get to those. Are there any questions right now?
Let's see. Don't see any right yet in the question box, but I will toss a few your way.
Sure.
Do you recommend using the business plan templates that you see online? Are there any pitfalls to using those?
There are pitfalls, because some of them, again, they're templates. They're not going to necessarily address specific needs of your business or things that your business does uniquely, but you can use as a guideline the elements that can be included. So if you have no experience doing a business plan, those templates are going to let you know, give those markers to that tell you, you know what, you need to include a mission and vision. You need to let us know who your management team is, what is your marketing plan, what's your financial plan, and those are, so some of those general elements are good to have for business owners if they have not actually done business plans before. And I do recommend at least using those as a jumping off point. And as you really get into it and spend time with your business plan, and everybody should, is you'll start to see, well, I don't see here where I'm able to add in like what my growth strategy is for, you know, getting this particular, or my distribution channels are. So you want to add that component for what are your distribution channels and how do you plan on expanding your distribution channels over time. So those are some of the things that I say that templates are just a great starting point. But of course, as you know your business better than anyone, and you don't want something generic to define what your business is, especially when you're planning to take that to a potential investor.
Business continuity in the event of a disaster. That's certainly a subject that's, you know, relevant for companies down here. Does that fit into your what if plan, or is it not quite the same thing that you described?
It's not quite the same thing because in the what if plan, you're really focusing on that worst case scenario. Like if everything just goes terribly bad and we're not, this may go wrong. This may go horribly wrong, versus a continuity plan that is more talks about your base services that you can still provide in light of a disaster, or if the power goes out. You want to be able to say, these are the core products and services that we're going to be able to offer. This is how we're going to streamline, versus saying to your investor, this is how you can get out and be made whole. Does that make sense?
It does. I just needed a clarification, because one of the things that our department tries to push out for information along with our emergency management folks is the importance of businesses, all size businesses, having some continuity plan. Is sort of the what if with respect to, hurricanes and any other disaster that may come your way, such as COVID. And so I don't know that there's an actual connection with what you were speaking about, the business plan impact that has, but I guess that was what led me to ask the question. But
no, it's a great question. But yes, I think that that's a really important element, especially post. Well, we can't even say post,
yeah.
But now that we've had COVID and sort of had that initial shock of having to shut down, and businesses, especially, trying to figure out, how do we continue? How do we get back online? And I know many HR departments were burning the midnight oil for quite some time, trying to figure out, how do we get people back into the office? How do we keep things going and continue to offer services in this new environment?
Right.
That is a part of the business plan, but it's different from the what if strategy that I actually proposed.
I have a question about the stages. It is an evolving process. You say it's a living document. And so if I'm a startup, I prepare a certain type of business plan, as you noted late in your presentation, because you don't have actual sales yet, things like that. You've got your fixed costs. As I do get established and I transition into an early stage company, maybe I'm 1 or 2 years into it, I have to go back, right, to the business plan and make the adjustments in step with where I am. Do I have that right? Did
Yes.
I get that right?
And you should. And what I would do is I would actually include that as an addendum. And in that addendum, meaning this is, so we started here, because then it gives you a starting, so your starting off place is never erased. You're able to see where you started off. But then you have in that addendum, these are the components that we need to update accordingly, based on where we are now, where we see ourselves going.
Do you find that the small businesses, they find that they fail to go back and make those adjustments?
They fail to go back.
Is that common? That they say, I already did that and I'm good? And
that's one of the things that I had mentioned during the presentation itself, which is the business plan is not a static document. As your business grows and expands, so should your business plan. Your business plan needs to always sort of act as that roadmap for where you're going next. So if you go on sabbatical or get hit by a train, or if your business should be able to continue because you've mapped out what those pieces are.
I see a question here in the chat. Could you elaborate on what you mean by letting investors, quote, be made whole, unquote? Is it just getting their return on investment, or breaking even, or is there more to it?
There's a little bit more to it. When I say be made whole, that's really going to depend on whatever the structure of the contract with the investors is. So it's based on whatever those pieces are for them to, when I say be made whole, it's simply, it could be as much as getting their full return on investment, or something that's negotiated later on. But generally those pieces, when we say be made whole, it's going to depend on whatever that investment agreement is. And it's always going to be there. You should never get money from an investor without having something in writing that specifically says, this is your exit strategy. This is how you get out, and this is what you get out with, because you don't ever want to be caught not being able to meet whatever those pieces are, because then it leads to unfortunate and potential legal actions.
There's another question. What are some of the major elements needed to develop what you would consider a great business plan?
That, again, it's going to depend on the type of plan that you need for the time. Everyone, I think, should at least go through the exercise of doing the full business plan, doing the entire, standard business plan. So that's going to include the mission and vision, your products and services, who's your management team, the full marketing plan, the financial plan, the SWOT analysis. All of that should be included as part of the standard plan. And I think that at least for the business owner and for that startup team, is the bedrock of being able to move beyond, what you need. Because, for example, with the simple plan, that's a one-sheeter. If you have a standard plan pulled together and you need that one-sheeter for a potential investor, then you can pull those pieces very easily. So what I would suggest is making sure that you have, and I believe we're going to be distributing the slides. And there's one of the slides actually has the outline of the components. I believe and again, if you look somewhere else or go to the SBA.gov site or the US Chamber of Commerce site, some of them will have different elements that quote unquote make up a great business plan. And if you Google it, you'll come up with millions of results. So it really depends on what's best for your business. If you're a startup business, again, it's going to matter most in your business plan what your expertise is, what makes you good, and what makes you qualified to have this business. So that's going to be a very essential element versus something, in the standard business plan where that is simply something that's it's included, but it doesn't necessarily take up a lot of space.
And aside from not preparing one at all, what would you say are the top 3 mistakes that a business makes in preparing a business plan?
Besides not preparing one at all, that's
Yeah,
can I still use it? So outside of not preparing one at all, it would be one that is too templatey, if that makes any sense, which is when you go to the templates and the templates say, here include what you'd like your business to do, and it's a one-liner. So if you're not spending time with it, spend some time. You don't have to spend months or years you shouldn't spend years, but you don't have to spend a lot of time putting together these components, but you want to think about where you want your business to go. And you have to write it down. You have to spell it out. That's really important. Another mistake, besides the time spent, is fudging what it is you can do. And you don't want to fudge that. That's not the sort of thing in your business plan. You don't want to overreach what you actually have the capability to provide. And finally is waiting too late to actually put the business plan together, which is after you've hired people and you've been in business for 2-3 years, and now you're trying to figure out what to do and, hoping to get funding. And now you put together a business plan, and essentially you're doing so much backtracking that it's not going to make a lot of sense. If anything, it might offer you some clarity for maybe what that you should have done the business plan.
Yeah, it's sort of like the accidental business plan. it's in that scenario, and we'll finish up in a minute. Would it be a disadvantage if you're going to a bank or to an investor sort of after the fact? You're in business for 2 years, let's say, and now you're really ready to get serious about some funding. Let's say you've managed to, get together some initial funding through friends and family and those kind of things.
Mhm.
Now you really need some money, and I got to do my business plan, and you're sort of doing it a little bit backwards because you've already got some established processes and whatnot, like you said, employees. Is that going to be a negative when you approach somebody, a bank or another investor? You can say, well, it's kind of late for you to be doing that now. I mean, is that going to happen to somebody?
Okay. Well, first, I'm going to say for anyone who's in this position now, if you have the appointment to sit down with an investor, have your business plan ready before you go into the meeting. You definitely want to do it before you go into the meeting. You don't want to ever tell an investor, you don't want to go to a bank and say, well, I don't have a business plan, because for that investor, for that banker, the first thing that they're going to think is, well, you haven't given a lot of thought to your business. And it's going to reflect not positively on you as the business owner, that you it's going to look as though you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants. And do I really want to invest money in someone who is flying by the seat of their pants? Like it's not a good look, if I might use a colloquialism. So what I would say is, even if it's a simple plan, even if it's a one-sheeter, sketch something out, put something together that is able to outline what it is you've been doing. If you don't have a business plan in place at this moment, take the time and even sketch out something simple. Your mission, your vision, what your company does, what you want your company to be able to achieve over the next 3 to 5 years. Look at your financial statements. And again, and I keep referring to Maria's presentation in the last hour, those profit and loss statements, looking at your cash flow. You should have an accountant. If you don't have one, get one, because if you go to an investor, that's the first thing they're going to ask you is, who's been doing your books? Yeah. So it's sort of the starting point, whereas it's not to say that you can't be in business without a plan, but if you plan on being in business and staying in business, having a plan, putting together a strategy, having tactics to be able to execute those strategies is key. Otherwise, as Sun Tzu says, you're setting yourself up for disaster. You cannot be successful if you do not have a plan in place. And business is all about planning, all about planning.
Yeah. So with that, the message is never too late, right? To have one, to keep you working on it. And, just the message is clear, I think, from what you just said, and for anybody out there watching who's maybe not prepared one or hasn't revisited it in a little while, just keep it going, encourage you to keep it current and make it work for you. So that's good message. I think we're good here. I don't see any other questions. Thank you very much, Kimberly.
And I'd just like to
we're
say,
finishing a bit early.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I would just like to say, before we sign off, again, this is something that we do consistently at Absolute Value Marketing. And if it's something that you as a business owner, whether you're a small startup or you're a medium-sized business and looking to expand, this is something that we do and we can help you with. If you feel that either you don't have the time to be able or the resources to be able to do it, or you just need your hand held, that this is something we're able to do. And we actually posted on our social media that if you are interested in having a 30-minute consultation, we are offering 30-minute free consultations for attendees of the Bizfit.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. And with that, I think we will move to finish up that segment and let you know that we will be taking an hour-long break shortly and resuming the program at 6 o'clock, at which point we will be talking about reopening your business post-coronavirus, virtual versus bricks and mortar. That's a topic that's been in the news a lot the last year, and it ties in nicely with the last two presenters, I think, in terms of the financing, having your business plan current, and looking ahead to she just said it, maybe it's not post-COVID, but whatever it looks like as we move forward with this situation, what you are going to be encountering for your business in the future years. So with that, I will move us to the break, and we will see you back at 6 o'clock.